Who doesn't like budget audio gear and sound quality that'll put a smile on the face of even the snobbiest audiophiles? Today, we're taking a good look at the brand new Wharfedale Diamond 12.1's. If you're new here, I review audio, video, home theater, personal audio, and other tech. If after watching the video you enjoy the content I provided for you, then please like, comment, and subscribe. If not, leave a huge thumbs down. In the past 5 years, there have been a handful of companies that have competed in the budget audio space creating speakers under $500. Now, I couldn't talk about these companies without mentioning some of the brands such as Klipsch, Polk, Mica, Kanto, Vanuatu, Fluence, PSB, and JBL, just to name a few. But my top 3 picks for companies that are in that space that have been consistent and have great reviews from consumers and reviewers alike would be, number 1 would be Q Acoustics. And so I've reviewed the Q Acoustics 3030i, and that's the only speaker I've reviewed from them. And that speaker is part of their 3000 series, which they've had a lot of success with. And that is currently at the top of the speaker leaderboard in the under $500 category. The next is ELAC. Team ELAC and Andrew Jones over there, they came out with their debut series back in 2015, and they really shook up the whole industry. Those pair of speakers came in at $280, and it really changed the game. So from the UK, we have Wharfedale. They've been around for a very long time. Around the same time as ELAC announced their debut, Wharfedale came out with their Diamond 225s, which came out at $449 for a pair. Now the two have been going back and forth, and they've both been updating their lines, coming out with higher end lines. In the case of ELAC, they came out with their debut 2.0, their debut reference, the Carina higher end model, and just recently reviewed is their uni-fi 2.0s. The 2.0s came in at $599. So I'll talk about that in a bit. So Wharfedale, what they did was they came out with their Diamond 11.1, which I've previously reviewed. And then they came out with their Heritage line, which had the Denton 85th anniversary. Those were at the top of my leaderboard for a very long time. And they have their Evo series, a higher end line, which I haven't reviewed. And just recently, they have their Diamond 12.1's, and that's what we're looking at today. So what's interesting is that ELAC chose to go up in price. So their uni-fi went up in price from $499 to $599, whereas Diamond 11.1's were originally $499, and now these new 12.1's are $100 less at $399. So when MoFi Distribution initially reached out to me to review these, I looked at the specs on the website, I looked at the photos, and I wasn't convinced that these would be better than the 11.1's. First of all, it didn't have the rounded cabinet of the 11.1's. It didn't have that cool downward facing port that they touted. And the specs here suggest that it didn't have as much bass. They claim somewhere around 60 to 65 hertz. And so my first email to them was basically this. If these aren't better than the previous model, this is going to be a very tough review, because I know what all of you guys want to know, which is this better than the previous model? If not, then why not just buy the old model, right? And so that was my concern, and I stated it here. During the Hi-Fi Summit, package arrived at my door, and there it was, the Diamond 12.1's. So what that tells me is that they read the email and they were confident that these were actually better than the previous model. So let's see. So the first impression was I took them out of the box, and they actually look a lot cooler than they do on the website. They look a lot better. They have some weight to them. And so I hooked them up, listened to them, and first impressions, I was impressed. First, let's talk about the look of the speaker. If you take a look at the outside here, it has a vinyl texture that's supposed to look like a wood veneer, and it's very convincing, a lot more convincing than some of the other ones that I've checked out, and it even has a texture to it. On the back, you'll find the port and the distinct dual binding post, which I really like. The combination of the black vinyl and the faux veneer sides reminds me of the front of an LS35A. In my opinion, these look good with the grills on or off, and the tweeter here reminds me of the tweeter from the 11.1's. We'll get into that later. The woofer has these embossed patterns on here that add rigidity without adding mass. Both the woofer and the tweeter have different designed rings around it that give it a nice aesthetic. They're mounted on a gloss black baffle with no visible screws, and that lends itself to the speaker looking more expensive than $399 might suggest. As I said earlier, the speaker does have some weight to it, so in my quick knuckle wrap test, this did sound and feel solid. This might be due to the strategic internal bracing thanks to computer modeling. Now, my initial thoughts about the bass turned out to be untrue. According to the specs, they are supposed to go from 60 to 65 hertz in room, and in my testing, I was able to get measurements and audible bass down to 40 hertz. Big difference. Now, if these guys are going to start underrating their bass extension, kind of the way that BMW underrates their horsepower numbers, well, I'm all for that. I mean, I still would rather them just tell me what it actually is, but I would rather them do that than overrate it and not hit those numbers. Now, keep in mind that Wharfedale also has other products in their Diamond 12 line, such as their Diamond 12.2's that use a 6.5-inch woofer and floor standing speakers as well. With regards to the treble response, these sound detailed and refined. The 11.1's that I've reviewed previously, I felt were a bit hot. They were also revealing, but just a tad much on the treble response, and my frequency response graphs of both of them reveal that. The main difference between the top end response of these versus the previous model is that although they're both revealing, these never sounded harsh to me. I think partially that's due to their BBC dip here in the 2K region, and so mid-range and treble never sounded harsh. The drivers themselves seem to blend together very well, and what I perceived as good time alignment and good phase alignment. The voicing on these kind of reminds me of one of my favorite speakers, those Denson 85th anniversary, except they are a little bit less laid back and they have less bass than those bigger speakers. Now, the soundstage on these is accurate, but not over exaggerated. I found that I was able to get a more focused center image if I were to put myself on axis with them horizontally. So instead of having them pointed straight out, I kind of had them pointed directly towards my ears, and that helped a lot. I did notice that these do seem to fall off faster when you go off axis, so the change from going on axis to off axis was a little bit more drastic than I've experienced with some other speakers, which might be good depending on your room and your personal preference. So as far as vertical off axis, you don't want to put yourself above the tweeter. That'll give you a nasty dip in the response. You want to put yourself below the tweeter, and the sweet spot being in between the tweeter and that bass driver. So I'm happy to say that the sound of these doesn't change very much when you put the grills on, which is confirmed by my measurements. Did I mention that these have a magnetic grill? Elac, I'm looking at you. As far as volume, these are small speakers, so they played loud enough for my room, but if you have a bigger room, you may want to look at the floor standing model. But they did work. They also work here near field at my desk, and they sound good here as well. I know a lot of you guys are waiting for the speaker leaderboard. Let's see how they place. So here we are at the speaker leaderboard. The Wharfedale Diamond 12.1's, they fit into the best bookshelf category, but I don't want to give everything away at the moment, so I'm going to go ahead and do a different one first. Let's go for best for desktop. Now, typically I put the powered monitors up on top just because they're really made for the desktop. They have a built-in amplifier, things like that, and typically they're smaller. They sound very good at my desk. It's just that they're a little bit big, maybe big for most people, so maybe somewhere here. Maybe the Mica RB42 above it, not for sound quality so much as for the fact that they're just a smaller speaker, so they're more suited for a desk. Let's see, best for under $500. So let me see here. We have the Q Acoustics 3030i. That's the current champ. Those are $399. The ELAC UB5s were originally $499, but they go on sale pretty often. Then we have some floor standers and the Dynas. Best under $500. I like the Diamond 12.1's for their top end response over the UB5s. So yeah, I like that. The Q Acoustics, they do have more bass because they're a 6.5-inch woofer, but I felt like they sound a little bit like bouncy. There's nothing wrong with them at all. There's nothing wrong with the frequency response. It's just something, you know what it is? Actually, at the end of the day, I just like the Wharfedale Diamond looks better. I feel like from a sound quality standpoint, they're neck and neck, right? The Q Acoustics have a little bit more bass and maybe a little bit more top end extension. So if you like that, but they are bigger, and I just like the way that the Diamond 12.1's look a little more. So I'm going to put them right there. They're at the top spot, best under 500. So best overall, regardless of sound, the Denton 85th anniversaries, ELAC, ARB51s, and then the uni-fi 2.0's, ELAC debut reference, and the Q acoustics. So we've already established that they're above the 3030Is. Are they better than the debut reference? As far as looks, I think the debut reference look very nice, but there's something I don't like about the tweeter on those. I'm not sure exactly what it is, but I also noticed that on the ELAC uni-fi 2.0, I kind of got the same kind of sound from the tweeter, and it's just not something that I like. It didn't sound as smooth as I'd prefer, whereas a Diamond just sounds smooth, and it has enough bass extension for me to put it above the ELAC uni-fi 2.0. So there they are, the Larsons, the Denton 85th. They have that nice sound, but they're a bigger speaker, and so they have more bass. ARB51s are significantly more expensive and powered, and that's where the Diamond 12.1's land in best overall, regardless of sound. That's really high for a $399 speaker. And so best bookshelf, we got the Klipsch the 5s over here. All right, so I just noticed something. I noticed that the Klipsch the 5s are here on the best bookshelf, and on the overall sound, they're down significantly further. And so that doesn't really make much sense. To be honest, I have to really clean this up. There's just been so many reviews that it kind of gets lost, and I really need to go over this and see where things should be placed now that I've had chance to check a lot of different speakers out. I might have to rearrange some of this stuff, but overall I would say the Diamond 12.1's are very, very close here, you know, somewhere like that. Or if you prefer just overall sound quality without the amplifier, you know, it could be like this also, but I think I'll leave it at that there. I don't believe that these 5 should be down that low. I would actually place these higher, but that's for another video. The other thing I want to mention is if you do want a sound clip, that's in another video, and I'll link that in the description. So now let me talk about some of the cons of these speakers. One being that they're small speakers, and so like I said earlier, they can't play super loud. Now in my case, they were able to play loud enough, but I can imagine that if you had a larger room, you could get these to overexert themselves if you have a powerful amplifier and if you need to play them loud. Now in that case, these might get a little bit shouty when they start reaching those limits. Now if you're going to be using these in a home theater with a subwoofer and you're going to have them crossed over above 80 Hertz, then you won't have to worry about that as much because they're not going to be trying to play full range. They talk a lot about their internal bracing, but I did find that I could kind of sense internal resonance around 315 Hertz on these speakers. It wasn't audible, but I could feel that the cabinet wanted to do something around that range. The fact that it wasn't audible is good, but there might be a case where if I turned it up loud enough, I might be able to hear something there. The other thing is the sweet spot is kind of narrow. Some people like that. For me, I prefer a wider sweet spot so everybody can enjoy the stereo image, but it really depends. Sometimes it's good to have a speaker that is a little bit more directional, but again, it depends on your room. Overall, I think these Wharfedale Diamond 12.1's are worth every penny, and I would recommend them to anybody looking for a speaker under $500. So that's it. If you like the video, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell to be notified when I upload new videos. And for all of you who aren't Patreon supporters, check it out at patreon.com. You're going to help me out, help me get a larger space to film. So I'd really appreciate it if you went and checked that out and see if you can support. I'd appreciate it. Anyway, that's it. Take care. Bye-bye.